Now it's preparing to go live.
You are live now.
Oh, sweet. Perfect. Hey guys, welcome to the Growth Force Show. I am Truly Do. People call me Tyler. Cuz is currently at work fixing a freezer, so it's going to be a solo show. Gonna have to bear with me, kind of work on the fly. Not on my account. So today we're going to address the topic of setting up what you need for basics. If you want to do 4 plants, 3 plants, 2 plants, possibly more. So when I first started, was lucky enough to get a kit gifted to me. It was a 2x2 by 4 foot tall tent, along with a 300-watt purple LED. It had a small exhaust fan, as well as a hydrometer. The hydrometer was probably the most effective part of that entire kit. Learning the kind of the easier way was to price out everything yourself. It's a much cheaper, it's tempting to get a kit. It's easier if someone does the thinking for you. But if you put a little bit of effort in, you're going to end up with a much better setup and a better product at the end. And let's be honest, that's what we're after at the end of the game. Perfect. Thank you, Cuz, for logging in the chat. Everything sounds great. So, like I said, I started off with a 2x2. It's fine, man. I started with a 2x2, and from there, I went to a 5x5. I bought a no-name Chinese brand. I think it's a Hulu. It worked well for 1.5 cycles. On the half of the second cycle, it collapsed. And if you watch Operation Grow, you'll actually see this kind of unfold. Not so much they collapsed on me. It was late at night. Thank God for my wife for helping me assemble it back together with the plants in. It was during week 4 of flower. So, the tent itself they look stable. It was metal poles, metal corners. The issue was the tack welds on the actual corner pieces themselves. And that being said, it's worth a little bit more money to just invest and look a little bit of research to make sure it's either a solid piece, a corner connection, or it's going to withstand the negative pressure at least that you're going to exert on it if you're going to go that route. We'll get further into negative pressure either in this episode or later on. As for lights, it kind of goes any which direction you want to go. If you want to go HPS or CHM or LED. Personally, I do LED because the initial cost, yeah, it sucks, but the savings on the hydro bill keeps the wife happy. And let's be honest, if that bill's too high, she can let it fly. So my personal choice was a Spider Farmer SF4000. I was lucky enough to win this in a photo contest on Grow Diaries 2 years ago, year and a half ago. It's done me very well. Before that, I had a 450 watt dimmable Viper Spectra. It's the old diode style, so it's a big clunky thing. It did great. CMH. Thank you guys. This is not my wheelhouse. So I bet Shipwreck's just kind of going, you bastard. So as I was saying, with the light itself, I was originally having the Viper Spectra 450. It did great for 4 plants, but as we know, I've kind of upgraded my growing style to 2 tents and a little bit more than 4 plants. I'm going to not specify the number of plant count because we're going to keep it very simple just for the basics. The main thing you want to worry about with lights is how much heat's going to come off it. And your PPFD. You can check the PPFD with certain meters. If you don't have one, you're kind of forced to go on just the actual specs given to you by the company. Cheers, Raptor. And doing so, you have to kind of be a little more vigilant. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. It's a great light. It's got great coverage. Do a little more research. Go on YouTube, search the brand and the light, and see what other people say. You're going to get some people that just don't like the light. Some people got a lemon. Some people got some good lights. And that being said, is you're more likely to just kind of get a feel of what the issues are with that light and if you're willing to work with it. Some issues are a heat. Some people don't like the length of the cord. It sounds stupid, but it actually is an issue. Cheers, Laurie. With the cord, I mean, for the driver, if you're using LEDs, it tends to throw off more heat than the light itself. Your LED light will have a heat sink. So, for instance, 3 minutes to the West Coast. seeing as I'm indoors and I don't smoke pot indoors, we're just gonna have to say cheers to you guys coming up here, and I apologize for missing the 710 on my side. Oh, Dark Dick Duck just snuck in. So back to the lights. We're going with the driver. It throws off more heat. My style is a quantum board. It has a giant thin aluminum sheet on top of the light itself. It'll have a driver. It has two manual drivers on it. If the heat was an issue, I could unscrew those and take them outside the tent by extending the cable itself. Now, this will involve splicing the cable. If you're not a licensed electrician or have no clue what you're doing, be sure to get help, either from someone who knows what they're doing, or video call someone, or even pay someone. I don't want to see anyone burn their house down from shoddy electrical. Sorry, just trying to see the chat here as well. So back to the shoddy electrical. Same thing goes with your panel. All this equipment's going to take hydro, and most house breakers are usually 35 amps, and that's the max you want to draw. So if you're going to need an extra pony panel, be sure you hook it up and call your proper electrician. Get it done. A pony panel is not overly expensive, and it's going to save your goddamn house, your children, your pets, and your plants. Your plants most of all. So on top of the light, you're going to have your exhaust fan and a carbon filter, your ducting. Now, depending on the size of your tent and the size of the needs of, the proper term is CF, or cubic feet a minute. Refers to the amount of airflow going through the tent. I know for myself personally, I run a CO2 booster inside my tent, so I have it a little bit lower than it should be. There's an actual the actual equations for what you require, it's out there. There's a lot of research you can do. It takes maybe $20 to pick up a nice little book. You got Breeder's Hand Guide. Sorry, dropped it. Also, your marijuana botany. These are grade A books, a lot of info. Going to teach you what you need and the basics, as well as the medical horticulture. Jorge Cervantes, he's an older scene phase, but he's also well known for his knowledge. Now, a lot of it might be out of date to some people. That being said, it's still a good building block and foundation to build off of. So for me personally, I run a little bit of negative pressure. Even with the CO2, I have found it does help. Some people say it's an intent, it's useless. It's not the case. Sorry, Duckweed was on my phone. Long, awkward pause. So back to the exhaust fan and the way you're going to hook it up. You have a few options depending on what you need. For me personally, I have my carbon filter hanging up top in the back right-hand corner. I have it going ducting out of my tent into the exhaust fan. From there, I have it venting outside a window that's sealed and waterproof, because let's be honest, there's going to be a higher humidity in that area, and if the stud's exposed, it's going to want to mold. So what I personally did was, it sounds funny, Flex Seal. Just spray the entire casing, put it inside, seal it back up, caulk it all your corners, and then hook up your fan. It's a simple hole. Leave the window open, and you're pretty much golden. Once every cycle, I will take the board off and verify that there's no damage to the house, because if there was, let's be honest, the wife's going to kill you yet again. It's all a city game, a happy balance. So depending on how much you have for your pressure of negative pressure, sorry, I'm a little baked. It's going to draw the tent walls in. And as I was saying earlier, if you bought a cheaper tent like I did, the Hulu, again, I'm saying the name so people don't make the same mistake and have to cry like I did. The corners will hold the proper negative pressure if it's a brand name. Gorilla, Secret Jardins, I've heard good things about. Even Vivo Sun, people knock about that, but I have a combo tent by them and I love it. So pretty much if you turn your vent on, your exhaust fan on, and the walls just suck right in right away, you know it's negative pressure. The plus side of this, it's going to draw the smell in the carbon filter and out of the house itself if it's vented properly. If you have, the downside is if you have any little bugs flying around, fungus gnat from the drain, it's going to get sucked in the tent if it flies close enough, and you're going to have a little bit of an issue. You can solve this by simply putting, it's been suggested before, even pantyhose will work, but a HEPA filter is you get the rolls of them, you can cut it out what size you need and place it along the inside of the vents if you have the vents open. I have it overlapping my zipper just in case, because the Ohulu tent that's still standing today is not airtight. The zippers have a couple little notches missing. It helps the light leaks as well. We'll get into light leaks in a little bit here. So with the negative pressure, like I said, it's going to want to draw maybe the odd small bug flying inside in the tent itself. A good way to beat this is have a clean exterior area, a lung room as it's called. It doesn't hurt to do once a night you're in there. Just do a quick little cleanup, vacuum daily, just general hygienic things for the room that is going to make it a lot easier and sanitary for your consumptions, and if you're going for patients, their consumption. So let's be honest, no one likes a hairy bud. From the negative pressure, the other option is positive pressure, which means you're actually forcing air into the tent itself with another fan. I don't personally do this because the hydro and because it seems that what I have going for me is working. You can do this. What is suggested to do is, again, you have the HEPA filter on the outside, blocking anything coming inside of that vent that's being forced inside your tent. It's going to stop insects, pathogens, molds. It's just hygienic. It's something we need to do and be very cautious of when growing cannabis, because once it gets resinous after about week 2 of flower and starts throwing pistils, it's going to get sticky, and everything you touch is going to stick to it. Personally, me, I wear a giant toque. That one right here, cover all my hair just so it doesn't get in my buds. Positive pressure, we'd force it in there, which means the smaller fan is forcing more air than the exhaust is pulling out. So it's going to balloon up a little bit. That's okay as long as you're not forcing so much air in that it's actually acting like a balloon and you're going to rip your seals. Then we're going to get into what? A light leak. So you might be thinking to yourself, if you're new, what's a light leak? When you first buy a tent, you want to zip it up when you're inside, or have someone help you zip it up if there's no zipper on the inside, and see if you can see your hand in front of your face after a couple minutes, your eyes adjusting. If you can see a couple pinholes here and there, get some electrical tape, get some duct tape, whatever you have on the outside of the tent, and tape it up. The darker it is, the less likely you're going to have for intersex traits to be appearing through your genetics and your buds themselves. Nothing worse than getting to week 2, week 3, thinking you're all golden, and you start seeing the hermes. So your plant kind of starts getting smaller and smaller. And when you only have 4 to work with, you got to make those numbers count. Oh, Dave made it. Thank God. Cheers, Dave. Single D out there. Enjoy it. So with the light leak, what it tends to do is a lot of people say, well, plants grow outside, you got the moon, you have street lights. Now, street lights will affect it depending on what kind of light it is itself. If it's a HPS and fairly close, it will affect your plant. But the moon actually throws off a different spectrum because it's not a generating light source itself. It's reflecting the light from the sun. So it's a lot of argument in the outdoor growers whether it affects them or not. I know some people will go as far as covering them or put them in their shed. Personally, for me, I don't grow here outdoors. I do help people outdoors, and they tend to throw them in a separate little clean shed or a smoke shack like to puff in. Just it stops for any unwanted eyes or hands getting on your plants, as well as for some reason if there's a giant Frago light, your backyard neighbor has a floodlight directed right on your plants, and you never noticed it because you're used to it. It's gonna distort your plants and make them throw intersex traits. It might not always do that. You might have strong genetics, which if you do, more power to you. Keep cranking out that gold. But if you don't, what you'll notice is, you'll have your hairs coming up. You'll get Let's see if I have one here. Use the book cover. So you have your pistils appearing from the bud itself when it's fresh. They're white. Some are thick, some are a little bit thinner. They are sticky. If you notice that early on as your pre-flowers are female, it looks great. If you have a light leak or light shine in the backyard onto it, you might notice is in the bud itself, like a little bit below the pistils themselves, these balls start forming up. That's actually not the bud itself. I hate to tell you that. It's going to be a pollen sac. So it's going to get so far to maturity and it's going to pollinate that little area. And you're going to be thinking, you're going, well, wake up the bud, it's going to be full of seeds. I'll be honest, my first time growing outside, half my plant was seeds. I thought I had a killer weight. It was just mostly seeds. Now, you think, well, it's free. It's good to use. You can reuse this next year. The thing about intersex trait beans is they tend carry that trait along with them. So you're gonna have it. So yeah, you have smokable bud. It might be full of seed. But if it's just you doing it, great. But if you're gonna try and pawn these off to somebody else or give them away free, you should at least warn the person that you're doing this, because no one wants to grow an intersex trait plant. If you are doing it, that is purposely done. It's been reversed. Then by all means, it's correct. If it's just from the seed itself, though, it's not. When sorry, the chat there. With the intersex trait is you don't want to be just using these weak genetics. Like personally for me, if I see a plant go harm on me, I'm going to chop it down as soon as I notice it. I'm not going to keep it. I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to grow in the corner by myself. The pollen's getting somewhere. It's going to be on your shirt. You're going to go and touch another plant. It's going to throw seeds there. And yeah, it's just going to be a bad growth cycle. So we've covered the tent. We've covered the exhaust fan. We've talked about the lights a little bit. I will say I've never personally used HPS or CMH. That being said, people have been using them for the gold standard for years growing indoors. Nothing wrong with them, just out of my price range in the sense of electrical bill. I'd rather pay that initial start cost, like I've said earlier. So now you have your tent, your lights, and your exhaust, maybe your intake figured out. Carbon filter will vary depending on your needs. Me personally, I like to change them out every 6 months, 6 to 8 months, depending what is going on in that tent. Like I have a tent that's going and it's maybe 2 plants at a time, just smaller plants, along with some lettuce. I might change that carbon filter out once a year, once every year and a half. The one with my actual cannabis plants themselves, I'm changing out every 6 months, every 8 months at most, because it will start to stink. And it's vented outside. My neighbors don't need to know I'm growing pot. I don't need any unwanted attention. I'm just trying to be a normal person in suburbia. Yes, it's legal. At the same time, you can get smell complaints about it, and then the bylaw will show up and either ask you to solve said issue or take down said tent. Whether you do or not complete your option, I can't endorse you breaking the law, but I understand free people will do free people things. So we have the intake, the tent, the lights, the exhaust. Another thing you should be looking at is whether you're going to be growing in your medium. What kind of medium? Cocoa, soil, hydroponics, aeroponics if you're fancy. Personally, me, I started off with ProMix HP. I could get a giant 100-liter cube of it for approximately $23.99 at Indoor Farmer. I think you've had. I've recently switched to cocoa. Yes, you have to water more. It does have a lower cationics exchange. So essentially, it's not going to hold on to nutrients as well, but it allows me to water the plants, come back in an hour or so, and see how they're reacting a lot quicker than if I'm doing with a soil. Even though if you want to get into specifics, ProMix HP is a semi-soilless mix. If you ask the manufacturer, it's mostly peat moss. If you do use soil, there's a bunch of different types of soil. You can cook your. I don't do organics that well. because I love it. It's more of the organic guy. And if you have any other questions, there's people in the neighborhood like Purple from OG, Dave. They're great organic growers. I think Dave's organic. We're gonna see if he is. Spotlight. Uh, if you're gonna go synthetic, what I would suggest doing is you get a feed schedule, half it, half the amount. They're gonna want to make you use more, so you buy it more frequently. If you notice that you're giving it to the plant and they start showing signs of deficiency, then you're gonna want to up the feed accordingly. I wouldn't say just say if it's showing signs of phosphorus deficiency, just adding more phosphorus. I would incrementally increase all the nutrients are added as you're using that feed. Just kind of keep it a nice even well house, as well as your pH cycle. We're going to get into that a little bit further on, if not later, another episode. So back to your nutrients and your medium base. So if I'm going to be watering, my plants. I have 1 gallon pots. I give them 1 liter of water. Now, some people say you have to water cocoa or anything until it's a 10% runoff. If you overfeed with synthetics, you will, because you want to make sure you're pushing the salts out. Some nutrient brands will actually have flushing agents. For New Millennium, for instance, it's Ruby Flush. For my company, I use IPP, Innovative Plant Products. It's called Typhoon Cleanser. Well, essentially what it does, it breaks with the salts and allows them to flow through the entire pot itself. And you'll notice at the bottom of your fabric pot, if you're using a fabric pot, you'll get this white crust buildup. That's the salt themselves. It's not mold. After you're done your grow, you can take out the medium and you can wash those out by hand. Don't use your washing machine. Again, your wife will be pissed off, your husband. Whoever does the laundry is going to get upset because it's going to smell not like cannabis, it's going to smell like dirt. The other option is hydroponics. So with hydroponics is essentially there is no medium. There might be a rock wool, there might be some clay pellets, but it's mostly just either a flood and drain or a constant mist of water to the root system so that plant can eat whenever it wants. It's essentially like IV, but that's a bad analogy. Not IV. It's essentially steroids. You're injecting it directly into the vein and you're just giving it everything it needs. Whereas if you're just synthetically feeding itself, it's more like an IV feed because the plant's not digesting things the way it's supposed to do. It's doing it in a natural way. So if you actually go from a synthetic feed to an organic feed, your plant will act a little haywire for about 2 weeks in between when it gets adjusted to the feed. It's got to learn how to eat again. When Because I Love It comes back on next episode, I'm pretty sure he's dying to go correct me on all the organics. I'm messing up right now. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying. So with hydroponics, you can't have a hydroponic system that has a medium in it. For instance, the Autopot system. I personally use one. I love it. It's a lazy man's growing style. I fill up my reservoir once a week, and I put my nutrients in. All I'm going to do the rest of the week is check pH and look at my plants. That's it. When you have kids, that's what you want to make sure, that you're using your time effectively and not just down there mixing newts when you could be spending family time. If you're organically feeding it, you're going to need the top dress at certain points. Again, this isn't my wheelhouse, so I will simply just say, I know you need the top dress. I don't know at what points. I imagine someone in chat's going to go, you do it this time. You messed it up. No, I'm not going to attempt it. You guys are going to correct me off the hop. So I do know that people with mediums of the organic nature, that they tend to have to cook them for at least a month. Some people do it longer. And when I say cook, I mean they put them in a container with the compost, the worm castings, whatever you're going to put in there, all that good stew, and they let it ferment a little bit in a sense. It's going to naturally break down any of the nutrients, allowing it a little. The worm's going to eat, they're going to poop, they're going to give your plants what they need. And when you're going to use that medium, it's going to be perfect. What I would suggest if you're starting from clone or seed and using a hot mix is have your compost mix and go to the store, buy a cheap $2 bag of dirt that has no nutrients in it. Make sure you read the side of the bag. It's not preloaded. And you can actually do a half and half mix along with a little bit of perlite and just add that aeration. And your plants should be a little more well off, I'll say. If you do it in a completely hot medium, it's going to burn your plants and might end up actually killing them, which is, if you're doing it from cutting, you spent probably $15, or if you bought it legally from the dispensaries, it can range from $20 to $450. If you're doing it from seed, those seeds aren't cheap. If you didn't make them yourself, if you paid for them, it's usually a couple bucks a bean, if not more so. Certain strains go for a crazy price. I know so firsthand. I don't want to talk about that. So we have the medium covered. We have tent. You have types of pots we can use. Plastic. If you use plastic, I would suggest drilling holes throughout the entire side and bottom just to allow aeration so the plant doesn't suffocate. Because as much as plants need water, roots need air too, something that's very overlooked. Generally, if you start in a red solo cup, for instance, what I will do to make sure my roots get air is, instead of watering the entire solo cup and saturating it so it's sitting in water, I will double cup it, put holes in the bottom, and that red solo cup has a quarter ounce and 1 ounce line. I fill the water to 1 ounce, put it in, let it soak up, and once it stops absorbing water, that's when I stop giving water for the day. That way I know it's taking out what it needs, and the roots that do poke out are getting fresh air. Most people think plants need CO2. It's the leaves that use CO2. The roots need oxygen, O2. Great thing. So we've discussed the plastic pots, drilling holes in for aeration. If you're using a fabric pot, you won't need to do this. What you might need to do, though, is I would suggest pre-washing your fabric pots. If you're going to go from a solo cup to its forever home, depending on what you're using, make sure that that forever home is not infested with any eggs. And it's hard to tell. That's why I would suggest washing it by hand with soap. Thanks, Laurie. I'm trying. So you wash it by hand with soap. Don't put it in the machine because, first off, it's gonna beat that bag up a little bit more than your hands are, unless you have a gentle hand wash cycle. Even then, just put the effort in. You're gonna have 3 months at minimum of growing these plants out with a lot of effort. Put the effort in setting up as well. So there's from fabric pots. They also have, I'm not firsthand familiar with them, but these bags that apparently you just rip open the top and put your plant in, and they use them more in commercial cultivations. They'll roll them out. Medium wise in there, I imagine it'd be cocoa perlite, or it could be a super soil or live soil. It's up to whoever buys it to figure out what's inside of it, not mine. So we have the mediums taken care of, the tent, the lights, the exhaust fans. One thing I will say about exhaust fans, what we should have kind of grouped in was airflow. You're going to want to clip on at least 2 clip-on fans. I go with a tower fan and 2 clip-on fans. Allow the air to blow through the leaves. When I open my tent, I want to see every leaf in that tent shaking a little bit. I don't want to see everything overlapping, nothing sitting dull. That way I know that A, there's not going to be any mold buildup if I have an improper temperature for a while. And again, with mold buildup, I mean white powdery mildew. We'll come into that further on in the episodes. Just pathogens in general. They will tend to find a dark, humid, wet place. And if 2 leaves are overlapping and not getting the airflow, it's going to make a wet spot. If you take 2 leaves and peel it back, when you see it sitting there for a while, you'll notice it's damp. It's transpiring through the bottom leaf and gets stuck on the top leaf. Vice versa from the top leaf to the bottom leaf. It just needs somewhere to vent. Like us all. So with the clip-on fans, I know a lot of people put them either on the top of the tent and blow down. The only time I have one on the top tent blowing down is on my light. I like to use a little bit of the heat. I grow in southern Ontario. In the wintertime, it does get cold in my basement, even with the heat on. So I will try my best to make sure that I have some heat being forced down, as well as a fan at the bottom blowing air either up through the canopy or on the pole coming horizontally across the canopy tops. As well as a tower fan in my one corner. It used to oscillate, but when the tent sucks in from negative pressure, it tends to get caught in the gears, strip the gear over time, and now it just points directly across the room. But airflow is one of the most crucial things that's overlooked. People always tend to grow first off, and don't think we're getting. They had one small fan in the top corner, and it's not doing anything. You see a couple leaves flickering, and that's it. You need a lot more airflow than that. I'm not saying make it a whirlwind in there, but if you're gonna put the time and getting the proper tent, proper lights, proper exhaust fan, your pots, your mediums, your cuttings, your seeds, spend the extra $25 on a small clip-on fan for the corner. Get two, put them in different directions, and make sure they cross winds a little bit, and just make sure the leaves dance. When you open it up, they want to look happy, up in the air, praying, and a little bit swinging with them. So pretty much, I think I've covered everything I had my first start. Now, I would suggest now for the either people with a little bit deeper pockets, and I don't say that because it's expensive. I say if you want to spend a little bit more to know more, I would suggest getting something like a controller for your light system. So my exhaust fan AC Infinity's T6 comes with a digital controller where I can set my ranges, humidities, highs and lows, and my temps, highs and lows. It'll kick on in accordance to whatever the reading for the sensors are. If it's too hot, it's going to kick on, suck some of the hot air out. Too moist, same thing. If it gets too cold, it's going to drop that fan speed down and make sure my plants stay in the happy zone. I as well invested in a P&L Grow Systems miter unit. At first, I thought, like, why do I need this? It doesn't do anything for my grow specifically, but it gives you a peace of mind that you can't match it. I can be at work and go, oh wait, did I turn my lights on? Like, is my timer working correctly? Check on, and I can see on a plot graph exactly the moment the light turns on, because you'll see the humidity drop and the heat start cranking up, or vice versa if my lights turn off. If you didn't water for a day, you can't remember, which, I mean, you should be taking notes every time you're in the tent. And I would suggest you having a whiteboard on your tent so you can note down you fed this, watered this day. If you don't water every day, your humidity will drop slowly over time. And then once it gets to a certain point, it's just going to crash. It's happened to me on Operation Grow season 4. I fell ill, not COVID, just the flu. It does exist still. And I ended up going, I think it was 4 days without watering. And when I opened my tent, it was a mess. Every plant was down. I thought it killed everything. Watered it, oversaturated probably a little bit too much because of fabric pots and cocoa. I thought I could get away with it. My plants went from being dehydrated to overwatered. And a day later, they were finally back happy. So I got to save that harvest, which was a joyous thing for me. But at the same time, sick, it doesn't matter. You should still at least either have someone help you take care of your plants on time, or sometimes you just have to man it up. Suck back a bottle of NyQuil, Dayquil, and just get to it. Oh, sorry. So we've gone through the basics, and we started getting into the controllers and the monitors. Like I said, PL Grow System, I can set my parameters, so I get an email saying, hey, your tent's out of whack, it's at a certain range. It comes with an ambient temperature sensor, so you put in the canopy, not a foot away from the canopy, like some units show. I'm not going to say names, just not to step on any toes, but we all know who we're talking about. It comes with a sensor probe that can go either in your reservoir if you're doing hydroponics to keep you up to date on your temps for that, or in the soil itself, and it'll tell you the temperature of the soil by the root mass, as well as it comes with a little black box that you hook up everything to. That's just on a moment. I'm not sure if you can hear my neighbors, they're kind of going off. So I invested in the miner unit. It was a great purchase. It's a peace of mind at work. And there's been more than one occasion where I've realized I've messed something up, and I've called home and said, dear, can you please go flick the switch on the tent? I know you don't want to touch it, but it's got to get done. And she grumbles, but she doesn't. That peace of mind is not only invaluable to me, to know that I have the ability to double check myself. So I can go back up to 4 weeks just on my phone and say, okay, well, this was going on here, and my plants started acting like this. and I noticed a discoloration, and see if it's an environmental factor that's actually causing the issue, not just a nutrient or pH. Oh, how much time we got left? 13 minutes. 13 minutes. We'll try and quickly break into a small basic of pH. pH stands for potential hydrogen. You have an acid and a base. I'm not going to specify which is which because I know I have it wrong off the top of my head. I believe, I'm going to look it up quickly so I don't get corrected. A base will be anything higher than 7, and anything lower than 7 is acidic or alkaline. Ideally for soil and cocoa, you want to be anywhere between a 5.8 and a 6.5. That's where I found my personal sweep zone. I try and keep it between 6 and 6.2, early veg, mid veg, and as it progresses on, I will kind of drop it up to about, or raise it up to 6.3, 6.4, and then right as I go to flush, I don't actually pH my water with the flush. And I know someone's screaming at the screen saying flushing is a myth. If it is, I'm still saving money on nutrients. I'm still just watering my plants, so why are you complaining? So pH plays a critical part in a plant because it's going to allow nutrient uptake. If I wish I had it on hand, there's charts you can look up on Google. If you look up a pH nutrient uptake scale, you'll see certain elements like calcium, phosphorus, nitrogen will all uptake at certain levels differently. Some will actually taper off at 6.5, whereas other ones will increase. Whereas if you go lower, they'll cut off. The ones that are increasing will cut off, and the ones that were decreasing will increase. 6.58 to 6.4 is that happy medium range where you get the most wide range, I would suggest, or I would say. Like always, if you are having deficiencies, you can just add a little bit more of whatever you're deficient in. There's ways to tell. We will get further into that along with IPM. I'm going to say probably in the next episode or the episode after. Cuz might correct me. So with the nutrient uptake, the easiest way to check this is first off, you pH your water after you put your nutrients in. Don't do it beforehand because it's pointless. Your pH is going to change when you add to it. I would suggest adding your not the microfeed, the brown bottle, but I would like carbs, sugars would be added after your pH. They're inert, so they're not going to change the pH whatsoever. But if you put your carbs in beforehand and pH, you've just killed pretty much any life form you've had in there. So just remember to take extra caution when using the pH up and down. If you're using the liquid form, it is an acid base. It is corrosive. It does hurt. I have the scars to prove it. I will spare you those because I spilled it on my lap. Visual image in your head. Yeah, let that soak in. So if you have an issue with your nutrient uptake, you're seeing a deficiency or toxicity, instead of trying to go crazy and adjusting your nutrient feed, first thing I would suggest is take a slurry of your medium and pH test that. Or you can get a soil kit at Walmart. They're $3, Garden Center. Test. It says what's what and what levels of pH you have, as well as what nutrient uptake is in the soil. That you'll see a better understanding of a breakdown of what the issue is. And a lot of times it's not a nutrient deficiency or toxicity, it's a pH problem. So Operation Grow Season 3, I'm going to say week 4 veg. I had one plant start going a little bit yellow on me. Other plants were fine, but I couldn't understand why. They were all hooked up to the same reservoir, all same strain, different phenols, but the same strain. So in theory, that this should all be doing fine, but the cocoa was actually a higher pH in the very last pot it was in the rest of them, and thus the runt was born. If you go back and watch that, you know what I mean. Hashtag Throwback Thursdays. So easiest way to correct a incorrect medium pH is if you have a low pH, use, so if say if it's at a 5, you want to raise it to a 5.5. Over the next couple of days, water at like a 6, 6.2 if you're watering at 5.8, or a little bit higher if you're watering at 6.2, water 6.4, and you'll gradually increase the pH of that medium. Just every day after you water, pull a slurry, double check it, see how it sits, note it down, and you can find the trend. It's easier to do the slurry and check your medium before you even put your seed or cuttings in it. That way you know what you're working with and you can adjust accordingly and not have to worry about root zone mass and nutrient uptake and anything else you got going on in the medium. Sorry, I'm exhausted. Well, we're closing into the last 8 minutes of the show. I would like to thank everyone here who's watching the show. Looks like mostly just the hood. I appreciate you guys for the support on the solo show. Cuz, don't worry about it. I did my best. I didn't break a leg like you asked to, but I think I did okay. Might have talked a little fast sometimes, but nerves get the better of me. It happens. I'm going to throw a big shout out to the Neighborhood Grow Show. Every Mondays at the same time this show is. They're doing their thing. Great knowledge, great group of people. Every other week they have a content show, and every week following that is a hangout, so you can ask your questions from the previous episode or ask input for the next one coming up. So our show, like if you're watching now, by all means, already know it's at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I believe it's 4 p.m. on the west coast of BC. We try our best to get it out at 7 o'clock. We had some technical issues. That being said, we made the best of it. I'm going to give a big shout out to Cuz I Love It. Follow him on Instagram. As you see in the bottom, it's going to be your left-hand corner. His little screen handle. Solid guy, great rosin presser, cranking out some killer products. As well as myself, Shooby-Doo on Instagram. And if you're on Cannabis, I'm not on too often, but the Growing Buds. I'm going to say thanks everyone for watching. Hopefully next week we have a better organization and freezers aren't dying on us. And thank you all for hanging out. Cheers.